Do a time check before Kate starts waving it.
I made the point earlier that I think we've got a new opportunity in annual giving to pay attention to who's raising their hand. That it's not just about sending out solicitations and appeals and seeing who makes a gift. I think there are other opportunities now for us to learn from who's expressing their affinity to the institution. This got huge headlines during the campaign when Obama made an announcement that if you want to find out who my vice presidential running mate is going to be, before I tell the newspapers and the TV stations, give me your mobile phone number and I'll send you a text message before it's in any newspaper or before it's on TV. And this took on a public relations life of its own, how great everybody thought this was. And here was the website at the time from 17 magazine, which is the high school girls magazine in the States. And so when your friends ask, who just texted you, you can say, oh, it's just Barack. It doesn't get much cooler than that. Took on a whole public relations life of its own. Isn't that smarty pants Obama? Isn't it great that he figured out how to do that? What almost everybody overlooked in this whole public relations bonanza is that what Barack Obama gave himself was a big fat database of mobile phone numbers that he could then go back to and say, boy, another $50 gift would really help us out. And I didn't see anybody cover that part of it, but it was so smart. Yes, sir.
They're 17, they're not able to vote yet. We enter information.
He's going to be up for re-election in a couple of years, right? But yeah, sure, but there's a lot of 18 or 19-year-olds that are reading 17 magazine too. So he was paying attention to who raised their hand, who was demonstrating enough interest in Barack Obama that they would give them their mobile phone number. And so he let his audience self-select themselves in terms of saying, you know what, you're my guy. I want to know all the information I can get as soon as I can get it about you. And that was the best audience for him to be asking for multiple gifts. So it wasn't just that he was smart in soliciting people over and over. He also knew who was exactly the right audience that wanted to be communicating with him. Now, somebody just asked me a couple weeks ago, they said, well, our graduates aren't going to be as excited over our new physics professor announcement. And that's a fair point, that, you know, the thing about elections is that there's always urgency, right? We got to win the next primary and the clock is always ticking, and so you could tap into that if you're Barack Obama. But, you know, if your alumni office is having some success in signing up people for Twitter announcements or whatever, I think part of this is just our learning who's got affinity for this institution. And so people may not volunteer their mobile phone numbers because they want to get your annual giving appeal. You know, but I do think it's useful to pay attention to who are the graduates who really love your institution, who going to your institution gave me my career direction, changed my life, showed me teachers that inspired me. And you need to allow those people to express those good feelings. And just because it's not everybody, you know, doesn't mean that there still isn't some usefulness to knowing who those people are. So I think the example is really useful. That brings us to the whole evolution of Twitter. And the problem we have in the States is that you know, once somebody subscribes to Twitter, and if I send out a Twitter message saying, make your annual fund gift today, you know, they still have to go to the internet or somewhere else. And I know you iPhone people can tell me, well, I'm on the internet right now. I get that. But it seems like over here, now that you can make contributions through the mobile phone, it seems like you've sort of connected the dots on that whole process. And if anybody's using mobile phone giving in your program, I'd be real interested in hearing about it. This guy at this not-for-profit comes up with an idea for a tweet-a-thon, but it's still a little clumsy. You have to sign up on Twitter and volunteer to receive his tweet-a-thon messages. And then on the day of the tweet-a-thon, you know, tell all your friends, but then you actually have to go online to make your gift, and here's this online giving page. It seems like a real clunky application just to say I use Twitter in my phone-a-thon appeal. But, you know, some of you over here have now gotten into using text messages, and so, you know, here's a billboard. They're just starting to promote this in the States. And so there's a university, the University of Colorado, that has talked about at halftime of a football game, they're now going to put a message like this up on the scoreboard and say, you know, text your message right now and be a donor to the University of Colorado. So you know, everybody in the United States is so obsessive about their alumni participation rate, and they're all in agony about all the phone-a-thon numbers that we can't call anymore because everybody's disconnecting their home phone. Well, this is a participation windfall at halftime of the football game, potentially. So, you know, as one opportunity goes away, another one starts to come over the hill. If any of you have done something like this with mobile phone gifts, I've got another book coming over the hill, and I'd love to talk about some of those examples. My friends in the States are way behind this kind of functionality and how it applies to giving. But it's a good example of how I think the transaction in annual giving gets easier and easier. And we always had to spend our whole budget, you know, just putting together paper appeals or outfitting phone-a-thon rooms because it was the transaction that was the most expensive part of the proposition. Well, you know, now all of a sudden that can become almost as simple as hitting the reply button. And I think that's interesting in terms of what that means for our annual giving program. It puts us in a position to be relationship managers more than just solicitors, which I think is a good thing. I think that breeds future success in terms of retention of donors and people just feeling like, oh, they're so kind to me at that institution, beyond just the American model of just solicit, solicit, solicit until people are bloody from too much solicitation.